Everyone, it's me, of course, Tia Torres. I don't know who else it would be, but I'm here with another episode of Wild Instincts. So, in today's episode, I want to talk about natural behaviors. Okay? One of my pet peeves when it comes to dog trainers is watching some of these bozos go to work with a dog and not acknowledging the breed, whether in a positive or a negative light. For example, let's say I'm a client and I call up a dog trainer and I say, my dog keeps biting my kids. Okay? Exact words. And then the trainer finds out that the dog is a border collie, or a cattle dog, or a Welsh corgi, or a Australian shepherd. And the reason I'm using this for an example is because I actually grew up with Welsh corgis with my stepmom, and they are actually herding dogs. And we used to watch them chase the horses all over the place and nip at the back of their heels, and we would have to call them inside the house. It was a natural behavior. Now, as a trainer or a behaviorist, I would say, I see the problem. They're only doing what comes natural to them. But so many trainers don't even ask what the breed of dog is. They go straight to, for $4,000, I will correct your dog's behavior. And it's so frustrating because the dog's genetic makeup plays a huge part into their behavior. And, I see so many people get ripped off from these so-called dog gurus, these dog daddies, these dog whisperers. It's interesting they have to have a title, don't they? They just can't be who they are. Okay. Meow. I'm being catty. Let's move on. But you get my drift, right? So that brings us up to working with the wolf dogs for this movie. So there was a particular scene where, and mind you, we had the script long before we left for Sri Lanka. So we kind of knew what we were up against, and we started training, obviously, before we even left the U.S. And one of the most difficult scenes, and we tried when we were in the U.S., and we tried to get this behavior down, and we continued to try when we got to Sri Lanka. And that was this. There was this particular scene where Mowgli was hanging out, they were in a cave, when he first got found. And he was with his wolf pack family. And one of the wolves, played by one of my wolf dogs, her name was Spirit, and she was very high content wolf. She was mostly wolf, little bit of dog. In one particular scene, she was supposed to walk up and snatch this safari helmet kind of thing off Mowgli's head. And you know the kind I'm talking about. They're these, they have a little brim around them. They're tan colored. Every little safari cartoon or movie you see, the safari guide is wearing one. But in this scene, she was supposed to snatch it off of him and then run off with it. And then Mowgli was supposed to get a hold of it and try to pull it away from her. So we tried teaching any of the wolf dogs at this point to make this a game. And what was recommended was teaching one of the wolf dogs a retrieve. Throw something, go get it, and bring it to me. Make a game of it. Wolf dogs don't play fetch. Okay? It just doesn't happen. Okay? I'm sure there's going to be somebody out there that says, mine does. Good for you. They just don't. Or they may go get it, but then it's all right, thanks. Bye. Yeah, we weren't getting the whole retrieve thing down. It just wasn't happening with any of them. So the closest we got to one of the wolf dogs taking something in their mouth like that was Spirit. But when she got a hold of it, yeah, she didn't want to let it go. Okay? And I mean, we're talking like there was some growling going on. But when we tried to transition it to this plastic safari helmet, she wasn't having it. Okay? And again, wolves don't really play tug-of-war like a dog does. They just don't. It's not natural. And a lot of dogs don't play tug-of-war. I think I only have one hound dog that might play tug-of-war. And then the 2 pit bulls in my house, they wouldn't play it at all. Okay. So we finally came up with the idea of taking a sliver of a boneless chicken breast, okay? And we put it up inside the brim of the helmet, and we wired it. We had to wire it in because we tried to use string, and she was just popping that stuff up and running off with it. So we wired it in, and don't worry, we bent the wire points in so it didn't get in her mouth, so that she would want to grab the chicken, but instead would grab the entire brim of the safari hat. And because it was wired in, she could not get the chicken out as easy. We just needed a quick shot of her jumping up, getting the safari helmet, and we did this in 2 shots, in two scenes. So if my memory serves me right, we had to use one of my other wolf dogs to kind of double her because she was not the friendliest. So we didn't want her too close to Jamie, okay? We used one of the other wolf dogs to like do a quick shot from the behind of jumping up at Jamie. We probably used Nashaka because he was so sweet. Okay, cut. Then we had to have a close-up of Spirit grabbing a hold of this helmet and just really yanking on it, trying to get it away from Mowgli. Well, there was no way we were going to put Mowgli in harm's way. Or Jamie. So we got a real close-up of like the helmet and Spirit, and I held onto the safari helmet, but you couldn't see my hand because we got it just out of frame. But I mean, we had to do several of these like tug-of-war things because she would get bored and just like walk away, or she would start to get really aggressive and start to growl. And mind you, we're doing this up in a real cave. Like we had to hike up to this cave. So it was quite a process. It was quite, oh my, and then you're in the heat and the humidity and there's no ventilation in this cave. It was a lot to take on. And you know, I used to get it all the time from my friends of, man, working in the movie industry, it's got to be so much fun. Let me tell you something. It is such hard work. Number one is a lot of waiting around until your time is finally ready, right? And if you're on location, like we were, you can't exactly go and sit in air conditioning. Like we were out in the jungle. And then there is the pressure to perform. All these people are watching you. And you got the camera equipment around, and you're trying to concentrate on what you're doing with your animal. Meanwhile, you want to make sure that the camera or the crew doesn't spook your animal or get in the way, or there's a lot of moving parts. And again, it's a lot of pressure, especially when you're working with animals, especially off leash. Working on the Jungle Book in the conditions that we did, it gave me a lot of appreciation. For example, I was a big Game of Thrones fanatic. And they filmed that on location. Like, they were out there. And I remember Googling it and reading about the conditions of how freezing cold it was. And having to, I mean, you want to sit here and say, but they got paid for it. Let me tell you something. When you're out there, you forget about that money. You're just like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm pretty miserable right now. And for us, we had to deal with the heat, the humidity, the snakes, the leeches. Oh my God. If you stood still too long, you had leeches crawling up your legs. Yeah. So again, a lot of pressure in doing this kind of work. But at the end and seeing it all come together, it's pretty rewarding knowing that your animals did that you were a part of that. But I want to get back to the whole topic of this episode, and that is understanding your dog's natural behavior and using that. If your dog does not have it, then don't force it. Hopefully we'll get into this later, but when someone comes to me and says, my dog jumps up on the counters, I'm like, oh, I love that. We can turn that into something good. That means the dog has initiative. The dog wants to do things. It's an adventurous dog. I know it's a pain in the ass for you, but as a trainer, it's fun for us. But you still have to, again, respect the dog's natural abilities, its natural genetic makeup, and just understand it more, Okay, well, the storm outside is settling down a little bit. I think I'm going to go outside and do a little cleaning. And, I really want this to be something where people appreciate and learn. Again, not just storytelling. So I hope you all are getting something from it. Until then, you know what they say. Always stay wild and always follow your instincts.